So today's warm-up is asking you to determine if these tables are proportional or not. So remember, we talked about proportionality yesterday in tables, and what we need to do is we need to figure out if their ratios are equal all the way across our table. And to do so, we're going to take our y values and divide them by our x values and see if that same value is all the way across the table. So if we look at number 1, we're going to take our y's and divide them by our x's. So I have 4 divided by 1, and when I simplify, I get 4. We need to hope we get 4 for the next 3 columns. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. 12 divided by 3 equals 4. And 16 divided by 4 equals 4. In each case, our ratio simplified to a 4. Because it was the same in every situation on our table, this table is proportional. What you need to do is you need to pause the video and answer number 2 on your own. Is number 2 proportional or not? Now you'll notice for number 2, when you started dividing, you didn't get the same thing. We got 1, 1.3, 1.5, and 1.6. And so because of that, all those ratios are different, and so that table is not proportional. And today, what we're going to focus on is, are graphs proportional or not? So we learned about tables yesterday, and today we are going to focus just on graphs. Now, by looking at graphs, you can figure out if they have a proportional relationship or not. And so, if 2 proportional quantities are graphed on a coordinate plane, so if you just graph them, the points appear on a line that passes through the origin. Some important things to note. They appear on a line. It has to be a straight line. And it passes through the origin. That line has to go through the point 0, 0. So you need a straight line that goes through the point 0, 0, and if that graph has both of those 2 things, then we can say it's proportional. So, looking at graph number 1 down here, we have our straight line, so that's good. However, our graph doesn't go through the origin. So this is not proportional. Graph 2, if we look at it, we have a nice straight line. It goes through the origin. And so in this case, this graph is proportional. Notice the slight differences between not proportional graphs and proportional graphs. So what example 1 is asking us to do is to graph the points on our grid and determine if this graph is proportional or not. So they helped us out. They told us x is on the bottom, which we have to remember, and y goes along the side. So we were going to look at this first one. You sell 2 candy bars and you make $3. We can think of that as an ordered pair, 2, 3. I can then put that point on my graph. I go over 2 and up 3 for my first point. Our next point could be thought of as 4, 5. I go over 4 and up 5, and I put a point there. Next, we have the point 8, 9. So I go over 8 and up 9. And then last but not least, we have the point 12, 12. So you go over 12 and up 12. And then what we need to do is we need to connect our dots. So if I would draw a line through these dots, it would look something like this. Now, we have to ask ourselves, is this proportional? Remember, proportional, if we have a graph, it should be a straight line through the origin. Straight line through the origin. So first of all, is this a straight line? Well, no. And did we go through the origin? Not really. So is this proportional? No. It is not proportional. And we could double check that by using our table and what we learned yesterday. We could take our y's and divide them by x and see if we get the same ratio each time or not. In example 2, it asks you once again to graph your points provided in the table. So what I want you to do is pause the video and graph the points from our table onto our graph. So you'll notice that I went ahead and graphed our 5 points, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw a line connecting them. Notice it's a nice straight line. So is this graph proportional though? Remember, proportional graphs are a straight line, which we have, but they go through the origin. This graph did not go through the origin, so it is still not proportional. However, it had half of what we needed for a proportional graph. So if we answer these questions, what's similar about this graph compared to the first one we did? Well, they're both not proportional. Both are not proportional. But what are their differences? Well, remember, in graph 1 wasn't a straight line, and graph 2 was. And another similarity is neither go through the origin. So even if you have a straight line, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be proportional. Now, on your own, I need you to graph these tables onto the grid and determine if they are proportional or not. So pause the video, answer 1 and 2, and come back and check your answers. So if we look at the answers, notice in number 1, we have the nice straight line, but our graph doesn't go through the origin, so it's not proportional. In number 2, we have a nice straight line, it went through the origin, and so it is proportional. Make sure you keep those differences straight as you go through the homework.